The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, this is Peter Towers from ESS BizTools. Welcome to this webinar on ESS BizGrants. Welcome wherever you are around Australia. We're going to get started, and what we're going to look at today, because we're looking at ESS BizGrants, is the newly completed new website which we have developed for ESS BizGrants. There's some significant enhancements in this website. It will be released in approximately 2 weeks' time. All of our current subscribers will be receiving access to the new website, and we'll be phasing out our current website at the same time in 2 weeks' time. So this is an opportune time to have a look at our new website today. We thought just a bit of background news on grants. The government has announced the establishment of the Entrepreneurs Infrastructure Program, which is to basically be the replacement program for Enterprise Connect and Commercialisation Australia. The government is proposing that a new segment, which is called Business Management, which basically is a replacement to Enterprise Connect, will commence on the 1st of July. A new concept, Research Connections, will commence on the 1st of September. Research Connections incorporates some of the research staff placements that were previously undertaken under Enterprise Connect. And commercialisation ideas, I should rephrase that, commercialising ideas is the name of the replacement for Commercialisation Australia. This will commence from the 1st of November. The government hasn't announced any details of relevant turnover limits for applicants at this stage. The proposed maximum grant is $250,000 on a 50-50 basis. That grant is available for preparation of business and commercialisation plans and proof of concept type work, which will assist in bringing a product to a stage of commercial readiness. So there's some interesting new grants as the government announces the final rules applicable to each of those components, and we are imagining or envisaging that the business management rules will be announced in the next few days, that they will be able to start on the 1st of July, and the rules for research connections and commercialising ideas will probably be announced over the next few weeks. So subscribers to ESS BizGrants will be kept informed of what's going on in that interesting area. The government is also talking about some other grants to do with their policy on the carbon situation. And there's talk in the media last week of a fund of $2.4 billion being established. So with a change of government, we always have some grants withdrawn. And I know some people around Australia thought that was the end of grants. It's not. Australian governments love grants. It's a way of them being able to communicate with taxpayers and business people. And I'm sure they're going to be here forever. So there's a whole range of new grants currently being introduced, obviously. If during this webinar you have any questions, can you please type them in, and in webinar jargon, raise your hand, and I will give you a comment on your question later in the webinar. Or if you think of some questions later on, if you can just send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, and I will get back to you. So this is the prototype of our new website on Enterprise Connect, on ESS BizGrants, getting mixed up with grants now. So when you go to it, this is what you will be seeing. You are able to insert the name of your client, so there's a profile that needs to be established so that our system is able to examine the information that you're putting in to give you a report on the type of grants that might be available for that client. You can use a reference number if you wish, because we are using cloud technology, and that basically gets back to your own firm's policy. You need to identify the corporate entity that your client is using. There's no doubt that companies are the most popular entity group with government grants, and in fact I cannot think of a government grant that a company is not eligible to apply for. But those other entity groups that are listed on the screen are eligible entity groups for some grants, either federal or state government or territory governments. So you need to just click on to whichever one is applicable as you go through it. We've got a question there, do you export products? If your client does, can you please tick yes? Do you import products? The same thing, please tick yes. Because both of those questions give us a link to grants that do apply to exporters and importers. The number of employees, we've segregated this. This is a new initiative in this new version. Nil, 0 to 20 and under 200 are basically employment number levels that are identified in the grants that are applicable to small businesses. So that's why we have it there. The years operating, again, they're the periods that have been identified in various state, federal and territory government grants around Australia. Some will only make grants for businesses for over 2 years old or over 3 years old, and we've, instead of the person preparing the profile having to insert that figure, you just need to click which range applies to your client. The same thing applies in turnovers. The turnover requirements that are on the screen at present were prepared based on the existing Enterprise Connect programs, Commercialisation Australia and the Clean Technology grants. Now obviously the government's withdrawing or has withdrawn the Clean Technology grants. Enterprise Connect and Commercialisation Australia are also complete so far as they relate to new applicants. There's still quite a number of businesses in both of those programs around Australia, but they are in the process of undertaking the work that they have to do. So those turnover levels tie in with the various grants that are there or were there. We will be changing those turnover levels as soon as we understand what the turnover levels are going to be for the Entrepreneurs Infrastructure Program, which is the new one the government's introducing, and also the various programs that have been introduced as part of the government's alternative to the carbon tax. So we'll be changing those, but that's what they're put in there for. We've gone through and analysed the grants, and they're the various levels that have been mentioned. The question is asked, are you registered for GST? This program in ESS Biz Grants is designed for small, medium enterprises. So if a business is not registered for GST, it will not be shown a grant because it is a precondition that you are registered for GST. Similar comments for are you tax exempt? This program, ESS Biz Grants, has been developed with grants that are available for businesses that notionally at least will be paying income tax. So they're not tax exempt. It's not for profits or for charities. And are you involved in research and development? That not only links us to the research and development rebate, but also is a clue for some other programs which will primarily be the Entrepreneurs Infrastructure Program as it relates to commercialising ideas, because most of those businesses have undertaken research and development. We can't go any further unless we enter some information. So I'm going to just put some hypothetical information into the system. So we'll call this business Blacktown Services Proprietary Limited. Now this is a company. We'll say they export, they import. Number of employees, they got 18, so we'll click under 20. They have an ABN. I think I skipped that when I was going through, but obviously businesses need an ABN. Years that they've been operating for 9 years, so it's over 3 years. Their turnover is $2.5 million, so we'll click the 1.5 to 20 million. They're registered for GST, so they're not tax exempt, and they're also undertaking some research and development. And obviously they're a company. If we tick research and development, but they were a partnership, you would not be shown a research and development grant. So the next thing we've got to answer is where they're located. So we will say 1, 2, 4, 5, I don't know if this road even exists. We hope it doesn't. Sydney Road. We said Blacktown. And we need to identify that they're in New South Wales, and there's a, I understand the postcode is 2148. So that's the data that's entered, and we'll save that. So then you've got this screen that's telling us about this hypothetical company, Blacktown Services Proprietary Limited. We've got their address. The system's located, that's within the category called Major Cities of Australia. The financial data, if you want to recheck it, is there. So then what we have to do is identify the business industry code. Now this is the big change that we've made in this version compared to previous versions of ESS Biz Grants. We are relying on the Australian Taxation Office business industry codes. So you can either enter the code number if you know it for your client. So if you know what their code number is, and we imagine in most cases you will know that, so you will just go to the left-hand side of the screen here. I'll just use a highlighter. You will just go to this side of the screen here and insert the number, click add, and that is the number that will be used to identify the grants that we've determined could apply to that particular business industry code. If you're unsure of the code number, you can click and obtain the Australian Taxation Office business numbers. I'm just going onto their website. So we can go to the business industry. I didn't. Yeah. I wondered for a moment whether I was supposed to click that, but yes, I am. So these are the codes as supplied by the tax office. You can either do it in the Australian and New Zealand industry classifications, which are the ones on the right-hand side here, which are allocated under the 18 different industry types, or you can use it in alphabetical index of industries. That's up to you if you don't know the code that applies to your client. So obviously these are then in alphabetical order, and you can select which ones you want to use for your client. So you look at the number, write it down, and go back to the system and insert it. I've done something wrong here. Sorry, I closed something down which we shouldn't have done. So I'm going back in now and finding the entry we had for Blacktown Services. So we're back now to where we were. We've still got to find and enter the code. If you want to, you could insert a keyword. So you might put in fabrication. And do a search. And the system is then going to come up and tell you some of the fabrication areas that apply for industries. Or you can enter the number. So I had a number here that I was going to put in, so 22210. So this was structural metal product manufacturing. If I'd waited long enough there, it would have taken another half a minute or so. It would have found that under that keyword fabrication, because we have fabricated structural steel, but it just holds up on webinars. So I've inserted the number. Otherwise, the number would have been on the right-hand side with the details of what it relates to. All you do is just click on it, and it becomes the key data that's then inserted into creating the grants. Now, we've now gone through to pending grants. So these are the grants that have been identified in the initial search as to what might be applicable for this client. It's identified 9 grants. I can tell you that as far as I know what the rules are going to be on the Entrepreneurs Infrastructure Program, that when those grants are in the system, it would have also identified eligibility for both the business management component and the commercializing component for that type of category. So we have 9 grants that have been identified. These include some state government grants and some federal government grants. So if we just have a look at how you would then use the system, you look at this apprenticeship incentives, apprentices with disabilities, apprentice with skill-based apprenticeships. If you want to understand what is in one of those grants, you just click on it and there's a summary sheet. If you want to have a look at the funding, there's a summary of the funding. If you want to have a look at a toolkit, you can go into the toolkit and you can say, well, I want to have a look at that paper. So we've then got it linked to a paper on that grant so that you can then read that if you want more information on that particular grant, or if you wanted to print that for your client, you are able to do so. So you can look at that and say, okay, that's very interesting. If you wanted, you think you're interested, then you've got to click on additional criteria. And in the additional criteria, we'll have some additional questions which are relative to whether your client might be eligible for this particular grant. We've only got one question here. Are you proposing to employ an apprentice who has a disability and will undertake a certificate 2 or higher level training qualification? So generally, apprenticeships with someone with a disability are able to get a grant for any type of business in Australia that is employing apprentices under the Apprenticeship Act. The other apprenticeships can be restricted to apprentices that are listed as being in demand, or not enough people are applying, and that's called the apprenticeship shortfall list, which some of the grants refer to, and we've linked it to that. So we've clicked yes there. Now, if you wanted to, where it says apply now, that is the URL to the government organisation for apprenticeships. If you clicked on that, it would take you to their website, and they would then, in effect, be directing you back to the local apprenticeship organisation in your area. We won't do that. We hit close. What the system is then doing is updating your grant eligibility, or your client's grant eligibility, obviously, for this particular grant. So if we then looked in potentially eligible, we have identified that there's one grant that is potentially eligible from our evaluation so far. So presumably your client probably not interested in the school-based apprenticeship. The Australian Bureau of Statistics is just some free information that's available. You could go into that. I'm just going to click through these so you get an idea. We said these people were exporting, so let's have a look at the Export Market Development Grant, which incidentally you can apply for a grant from the 1st of July this year for expenditure incurred up to the 30th of June this year. So there's a brief summary. We have a look at the funding. So a business, any type of entity, can obtain up to $150,000 if they've spent more than $20,000 in export marketing activities, except in New Zealand, North Korea and Iran. New Zealand because they're treated as virtually being part of Australia, and the other two because they're not really liked on the international scene. Application toolkit, if you wanted to read the paper on the Export Market Development Grant, you just click it, and the paper that's part of ESS BizTools will appear, and you can read that, and you can copy that for your client if you wish. There's another form there which is a checklist. Now there are some additional criteria. There's a few more questions in this one. Have you spent money to seek out demand for or develop an export market? We'll say yes. Are you claiming, if you're claiming overseas representation, have you maintained documentary evidence that shows what your consultant's been doing? We'll say yes, because these are the requirements under the legislation. If you're claiming expenses under the marketing visits, have you maintained full records and cost records? We'll say yes. Have you claimed, if you've claimed 2 export market development grants, have you discussed with Austrade? So once you've claimed 2, your client's got to have a discussion with Austrade and to see how they're going. So we'll say, well, we'll do that. Will the business spend more than $20,000 aggregate in those dates will be changed in the next few days because we're getting now to 2014. Up to this stage, we've only been doing it for the 2013 years. So you can have the first a 2-year period combined to gain your eligible expenditure of $20,000 if you want. So it's a misnomer, but it's the first year. It can be 2 years, so we'll say yes. And is the business the principal for export? If you wanted to, you could apply now, and that will take you to the Austrade website where you could start a process. We've now hit close, and it's going to update the grant eligibility. And if we go back and have a look now, under potentially eligible, we've got both of those grants. We can go back to pending, and it will take us through these other grants. So that's the way you work your way through to determine which grants your client might be eligible for. Because we're doing a webinar, I'm going to short circuit that and say, okay, we've got 2 grants we're potentially eligible for. We now want to make a presentation to our client. So the report says it's prepared for Blacktown Services, prepared by, as a subscriber, that would be your firm name that you registered with ESS Biz Grants when you registered. The date comes on the report. It gives a brief synopsis of what the grant is about, so you can have a conversation with your client, and the same with the Export Market Development Grant. There are disclaimers on the bottom which basically indicate that this report has been prepared based on information that's been inserted into the profile, but there's no guarantee that the client will gain a government grant because they've still got to go through the application process. All that we're doing is identifying for you that a grant is a possibility. So that's how the system works. Some people ask me why we developed this product. It's developed primarily from feedback from some consultants who were involved in interviewing small businesses who were clients of accountancy firms, and they indicated they were receiving quite a number of complaints from small business operators that their accountants were not keeping them informed of what grants were available. The small businesses claimed that they were literally finding out about the grants from a competitor, either overhearing them in the pub on a Friday afternoon or reading about it on their website or in the local media. And they believed that accountants should have been far more proactive in informing their SME clients about the grants that are there. I endorse that. I think it's a service that accountants should be using. The other issue is, of course, accountants can gain work out of this. A lot of these grants have work tasks that can be undertaken by an accountancy business that is wanting to be involved in the business advisory space. I have been involved with and know of accountancy businesses that have undertaken business plans, strategic plans, debtors reviews, budget and cash flow forecast, human resources reviews, risk management reviews, project management for major grants under the Commercialisation Australia. A wide range of services that can generate quite considerable fees of up to, in some cases, $50,000 and $60,000 for work that's been undertaken. So the grants are not only a service to the client in helping them to identify an area where they can receive funding of up to 50% to undertake a particular project, but also it can unearth a stream of income for the accountancy business that is proactive in this area in assisting their clients to get involved. I'm just going to check to see whether we've got any questions. We don't have any questions. I hope you've enjoyed this webinar today. If you think of some questions later on, please don't hesitate to send a question into me, peter@essbiztools.com.au. The subscription for the new version of ESS Biz Grants has been kept at the same level as what it was previously. So that's $450 plus GST. Gives you 24/7 access to ESS Biz Grants for 12 months, a tool that you will be able to use over and over again with your clients to identify government grants that they might be eligible for. The way you do that, this time of the year, if someone's not that busy in your office, start them entering the profiles and be very proactive in contacting your clients in July and saying to them you've identified some government grants they might be eligible for. Do they want to commission you to do the work? If it's a little bit later in the year, what most firms do is they enter the data. You saw how quick it took me to do that profile, and I'm not a fast typist. Only a few minutes you can enter the profile, and you can then have a conversation with your client as part of your final accounts review of the client and indicate that you've identified these grants that the client might be eligible to apply for. In my experience, well over 95% of clients will say they are interested because everyone likes getting something from the government, and after all your clients are paying their taxes, which is where this money is coming from the grant point of view. So thank you very much for participating in this webinar today. As I've said before, if you have any additional questions, please contact us. We look forward to welcoming the firms that are participating today as clients of ESS BizGrants. We do run a regular monthly webinar program for our subscribers, and once you subscribe, we will not only be giving you a username and password, we'll also be sending you invitations to participate in more in-depth webinars so that you truly can use this product to not only enhance your reputation with your clients as being a proactive accounting business, but earn fees for your own organisation from offering business advisory services work. Thank you very much for participating. Hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.